And next is the Vellum leaderboard. You'll find a link in the resources. Vellum, again, the company where the CEO messaged me on LinkedIn after I mentioned it. It's got a number of good comparison tables. It's got the comparisons of models side by side with another model that you can pick from the drop downs and see them ranked. But the thing I wanted to mention, the thing that I find most helpful is right here, the context window, cost, and now speed. It didn't used to be there. Also speed comparison in this table, but I really like it because it's such a one place to go to get the input and output cost per tokens for a context window. And as you now know from week one, there is another dimension here, which is the cached cost. If you send the same input tokens twice, usually significantly less. But to get that, you have to go to the model's website. But anyway, that's Vellum, very useful. Okay, so this is now looking at the SEAL leaderboards, a set of leaderboards published by AI company Scale.com, and they are intended to be leaderboards that quite specifically test for different areas of expertise. So if you have a very specialized task, you might want to see if there's a SEAL leaderboard that applies to you. Now, one of the leaderboards they're most famous for producing is the Humanities Last Exam leaderboard that I promised you. And if we drill into that, we can see more about Humanities Last Exam. It explains that it's 2,500 questions. It gives a sort of background to it about frontier benchmarks just all having diminishing returns. And then in partnership with the Center for AI Safety, they came up with this idea. They had user-submitted questions, and they selected this final set. And you'll see that when they started out, which was November of last year, the top model was GPT-4o, and it was scoring 2.72. I told you I thought it was between 2 and 3. There it is. And over time, look at how these numbers have changed. And now GPT-5 scoring 25.3. I think we saw a slightly different number on artificialanalysis.ai, which is because there's a variant of this exam, which is just text only, whereas this one is the multimodal version. And you can see how this has changed. And, you know, for people that feel like progress is slowing down, that's not what we see in terms of this ability. The way, if you're wondering how are the questions evaluated, because they're so hard, well, let's just start by looking at what are the questions like. This is on their website, Humanities Last Exam website. Here's an example of a question. It's given that image. The question is, here is a representation of a Roman inscription originally found on a tombstone. Provide a translation for the Palmyrene script. A transliteration of the text is provided. So, goodness, it's some sort of combination of like having amazing subject matter knowledge of something super obscure, but also presumably being able to puzzle your way through something, because I imagine this is something that requires some decoding and some problem solving to figure out how you could possibly read that. Then here's a question on ecology. I'm not even going to try and read this through because I'll embarrass myself, but you can see that there and get a sense of how hard these are. There's a maths question, there's a computer science question, there's chemistry and linguistics. I'm providing the standardized biblical Hebrew source text. Your task is to distinguish between closed and open syllables. Chemistry, trivia, physics. I'll take a look at that later. Rod is tension. What is the value? Okay, so some sort of super hard physics level question. That certainly looks like it might be it's from UC Berkeley. It's probably a very difficult question. So those are the samples. It's fun to see them. It's fun to understand how challenging these are. They are definitely above PhD level in complexity. The way that it's judged is that the model comes up with the answer, and that is provided to O3, one of the larger reasoning models from OpenAI. And O3 is given the answer from the model and the reference gold truth answer, the actual ground truth, the golden answer, mix my words there. It's given that, and it has to compare them and confirm that they are consistent. And so it is a kind of LLM as a judge, but it's not just the LLM grading it. It's the LLM using a reference answer, so which is an excellent technique. So that is Humanities Last Exam. It's great fun. Take a look at it. And whatever you're looking at now, no doubt the world has moved on from here. And so you'll see where we are. And if it's in the 80s or 90s, then maybe the overlords have already taken over. That is Humanities Last Exam. And just to walk you through some of the other leaderboards on the SEAL leaderboards, there's one that specifically tests models' ability to use MCP to call tools. There's some software engineering metrics. There is one that's about being able to reason in foreign languages or to solve foreign language puzzles with reasoning, because reasoning tends to be quite focused on English language. There's a bunch of interdisciplinary challenges. There is a particular evaluation around security and safety. That's something that Scale.com has focused hard on. And a similar one about alignment, the mask, is evaluating models' honesty when pressured to lie. And you remember the point I made about the potential concern that models know when they're being evaluated. Obviously, that comes strongly with a metric like this. But as of now, Sonnet does well on Sonnet 4.5 seems to do pretty well on this. Their consistency with their beliefs when pressured to lie. Super interesting. Complex multi-step reasoning, vision, understanding, and then a tutor bench, something very specific for teaching skills. And so, yeah, if you're looking to build something that's going to be in the education space, then the tutor bench might be a useful leaderboard for you. So that wraps up the Seal leaderboards. Let me flip to Hugging Face. In Hugging Face spaces, there is a mass of useful leaderboards that you can look at for comparing open source models against different characteristics. The one that used to be the go-to is called the Open LLM leaderboard, but it's been archived for a few months now. It seems that Hugging Face has decided that they don't want to be in the game of building these leaderboards anymore, possibly because people were starting to game it, and there was so many different models being put up here that it became noisy. So I think they have backed off from being in this space. But if you're interested, it's a few months old, but it is still a nice place to see about the performance of different open source models. But there are a lot of other leaderboards here that are kept updated. There's a big code leaderboard that gives you the performance of different coders against different programming languages like C++, JavaScript, Java. And you can see that it's got Qwen 2.5 coder. So this has some of the latest models. And you'll find a bunch of other leaderboards here. There's a performance one that's very good for seeing the speed and power of different open source models on different hardware spec. There's a medical leaderboard that has very specific criteria for the medical industry, Q&A, anatomy, clinical knowledge, and ranking different models against those specific benchmarks. Agent leaderboards, deep research, hallucination, image leaderboards, so much to explore on Hugging Face. Always double check how recently it's been updated and check the sources and make sure that this is something that is a credible leaderboard. But otherwise, tons of information freely accessible on Hugging Face. And I mentioned the last one I was going to tell you about is LiveBench, which is a hard and contamination-free benchmark that involves completely refreshing all their questions every 6 months and then going through and testing against these different factors like reasoning, coding, agentic coding, maths, and data analysis. And you can see how the models rank compared to these different scores. GPT-5 High is currently in pole position. Claude 4.5 Thinking comes soon after GPT-5. And does pretty well, but is also doing very well on reasoning, but winning in coding. Look at that, first place on coding, or tied for agentic coding. Strangely, GPT-5 High does slightly worse than GPT-5 Medium on agentic coding. Maybe it overthinks things through. But this is a great resource because these metrics are so carefully prepared to not suffer from dataset leakage problems. And so this is a very credible source. And it combines, like most of these leaderboards, closed source and open source models. A bunch of ones here. GLM, I think we saw that did pretty well on artificial analysis as well, is from Chinese startup Z.ai. So lots of great models to look at here. Do check out and bookmark LiveBench as well.